Did you ever wonder how artists make a print? This video will show you how to create a linocut print from start to finish. Printmaking is a process that dates back to China, where artists first worked with wood to create prints. Printmaking is the process of carving an image or text into a printing plate to create multiple copies of the same image or text. This process allowed for the mass production of imagery and text in the 16th century that helped spread ideas and art across the world. To begin the process, an image is often used as inspiration. In my classes, I stress to my students that their images need to be original and not cliché. This includes avoiding images created by other people, images that are trademarked, copywritten, or otherwise overused, like peace signs, hearts, etc. In today's video, I will keep things simple and use a photographic image of penguins to demonstrate with. This image is for reference only and is from a recycled calendar. You may choose any image to work with, however one that is not too detailed or complicated, since linocut doesn't lend itself to small details. To begin my drawing, I will study my image and measure each part so I draw it accurately and in proportion. I recommend drawing basic shapes first and adding details second. This will ensure that the size and shape are correct before adding details, which if drawn too soon may be placed incorrectly on the image. Once the image is drawn with pencil, I have students consider line variation in their design. Here I'm outlining my image with two different tip Sharpie markers, one a fine tip and the other an ultrafine tip. Using different line thicknesses creates emphasis and helps to highlight different areas of the work. It also differentiates main areas of the image from finer details. The image will later be transferred onto linoleum, which is a man-made material often used for flooring. It wasn't until the early 1900s that it was used in the art community. Previously, wood was used to carve. However, it was difficult to carve, could splinter, and it was much more time-consuming as a process. Once your image is finalized, you are ready to transfer your image onto the linoleum. In order to do this, you will need graphite transfer paper. This paper is coated on one side with graphite. The darker side of the paper has the graphite, and this side must be taped dark side facing down or towards the linoleum. The drawn image must then be taped on top of the graphite transfer paper. All of the graphite lines must be retraced, preferably using a pen, since the tip of a pen is metal and exerts more pressure than a traditional graphite pencil. The force of the pen will push the graphite onto the linoleum. It is best to trace all of your lines and just lift a corner of the taped papers to see if the transfer was successful before fully removing all of the taped papers. Now that the image is on the linoleum, you may outline your pencil lines with Sharpie marker if necessary. This step will prevent your lines from smudging and also make obvious which lines you will need to carve later. It is now time to begin the carving process. In order to properly carve your linoleum, you will need different materials and tools to set up your space. You will need a bench hook, which is used to hold your printing plate in place as you carve it. With the use of a metal bench hook, which can skid across the table, two gripping mats need to be used. One mat goes under the bench hook and the other on top, where your printing plate will then be placed on top of the mat while carving. You will also need linoleum cutters. These come in different sizes. The size of each cutter is on the metal part of the tool. These numbers are small and signify how wide of a line each cutter will make. The larger the number, the wider the line. In our classes, we use a range of cutters from size 2 to size 5. I recommend that most students begin with a size 2 cutter, since lines can always be widened later. If carving away large areas of the linoleum, like the backgrounds, a size 4 or 5 cutter would be more appropriate. When cutting areas away from the linoleum, it is important to follow these safety measures so that you do not accidentally gouge your body. Always carve away from your body. Keep two hands on the linoleum cutter. If needed, one hand may rest behind the tool while carving. Hold the linoleum cutter at a 45-degree angle when cutting. Turn the plate while carving so that you are always carving away from your body and toward the end of the bench hook. The plate must remain on the bench hook while carving at all times. The plate must remain flat on the bench hook while carving. The plate must remain against the end of the bench hook when carving. Take your time while carving. Pay attention and focus on your work. Gather shavings at the end of class and throw in the trash. If you happen to cut into your hand or body, please let the teacher know immediately. Watch as the printing plate is being carved. Notice how each line outlined in Sharpie marker is carved away. Notice how the plate is frequently turned while carving to ensure that the linoleum cutter is never going towards the person who is carving the plate. Once you have cut away all of your lines, you are now ready to begin the printing process. You will need a variety of materials to complete a print. First, you will need printing ink. The ink comes in tubes and you will want to wear a smock, as the ink can stain clothing. When creating a print, you will use 2 to 3 analogous or similar colors found next to each other on the color wheel. In my demonstration, I used turquoise, red, and white ink. White is a good option to keep colors lighter and more opaque. The ink will be applied to a half sheet of paper, which is taped to the end edge of a table. All 4 corners need to be secured so that the paper doesn't rip or move. Ink will be placed on the top half of the paper using a marble-sized amount of each color. You will also need a brayer, which is a hard rubber roller that is used to evenly coat the printing plate with ink. The brayer will be rolled through the ink before application to the printing plate. Once the ink is evenly applied to the printing plate, the plate is then flipped onto a clean sheet of construction paper. When selecting the construction paper color, make sure that the ink colors and construction paper colors contrast each other. Using complementary colors is always a good idea. To transfer the image, a baren is used on the back side of the printing plate, and then the printing plate is flipped, paper side up, and the baren is used again. The baren is pushed using your body weight and used in firm circular motions. Once the baren has been used, the paper is peeled off of the plate. This process is repeated multiple times using a variety of different ink and construction paper combinations. To make a print with multiple colors in specific areas, generally the entire plate will be inked with what will be the background color. After the entire plate is inked and transferred onto paper, then specific areas of the plate are hand-painted with ink. These hand-painted areas of ink are then printed by realigning the plate with the previous print. This process is repeated until each area of the print is different and each image within the print visible. The foreground, middle ground, and background should all include different colors. A wet print can be made when there is a lot of excess dry ink stuck on the printing plate. To make a wet print, lay down newspaper first. Spray both sides of a piece of construction paper with water. Make sure the paper is evenly wet and saturated. Blot excess water with a paper towel. Paper should be damp. Put the printing plate on top of the damp paper and transfer, but using a clean brayer to do so. A baren will rip up the wet, fragile paper.